Hi everyone, so we are going to get started. My name is Olivia. I am a social service worker student intern here at Youth Now on Track Services. I am so excited to introduce our workshop for this evening. Today we have our guest speaker, Dr. Blackwood, a trusted speaker, counselor, and coach with over 20 years of experience. Today's discussion, we will be focused on uncovering your worth, the power of self-appreciation. Before we begin, just a reminder to have your name visible throughout the workshop and stay till the end for our complimentary raffle. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Blackwood this evening.
Good to see everybody, all the people that I can see. Nice to meet you, Olivia. For those of you who don't know me, you wouldn't know that when I was 8 years old, I moved from Jane and Finch to Leslie and Finch. Now, that's only about 20 minutes down the road, but it was a world away, because when I was in school, I went to not Seneca. I moved to go to Seneca Hill Public School, but I went to Yorkwood's Gate Public School, and there were three white kids in the school. And when I moved, I was one of three black kids in the school. So it's a completely different world. But it also moved me from being the advanced kid in the class to being a kid who was behind in the class, because I went into a gifted class and a lot of the students had been there for a number of years. But it was a completely different world. I didn't know what to expect, didn't know how to feel. But what I do remember is not doing well at first. And what that meant to me, or what I interpreted that to mean to me, was that I wasn't smart. I was different, and the differences that I could see didn't stand out to me as good differences. They were all bad differences. I didn't like my skin. I didn't like my hair. I just knew myself as the dumb black kid. And it took a long time for me to understand how all these things would impact me, even bullying before I left. Um, it took me a long time, and I mean years, decades, to shake the hold of anxiety and depression. And one of the biggest barriers to loving myself, which is what we're going to be talking about, was the belief that feeling good about myself was wrong, that loving myself would make me full of myself, full of pride and conceit. Now, loving yourself doesn't stop you from appreciating other people, nor does it fill you with conceit or pride. In fact, it does the opposite. So, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Andrew Blackwood, also known as Coach Drew. And today I'll be talking about the importance of uncovering your worth and harnessing the power of self appreciation. So, in the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk about the impact of not appreciating yourself on your mental health. We'll talk about the benefits of appreciating yourself. And then we'll talk about some steps that you can take to love yourself in a very, very healthy way. Okay. Now, self appreciation is essentially another way to talk about self esteem. Okay. Self esteem. And the way I see it, self appreciation is healthy esteem in action. Okay. It is loving yourself. And that is an indication of healthy esteem, emotional healing, and spiritual maturity. All of those things, they work together, they work hand in hand. When you have a sense of healthy self esteem, you will have come through some degree of emotional healing, because I believe pretty much everybody goes through some hard times and some hurtful experiences or some traumatic experiences. And it causes us to believe things about ourselves and our self-worth, our future, that's just not true. And as we heal from those things, we grow and we mature, even spiritually. I believe we're all spiritual people. There's elements of us that are more than just our flesh and blood and the ways that we think. There are some things that are just beyond our ability to fully understand. But that will fall under the category, in my mind, anyways, of spiritual maturity, spirituality and spiritual maturity. So, we're going to talk a little bit about healthy esteem, what it is, and why it matters. So, I used to think of esteem in terms of low self-esteem and high self-esteem, but I don't see it that way anymore. I don't think about it that way. I think of healthy esteem in terms of an accurate picture of yourself, an accurate picture of yourself, your self-worth, who you are as a person. That translates to a healthy sense of esteem. So when you think of yourself in a very healthy way, you don't think of yourself as better than others because you don't think of yourself as worth more than others. I don't think that's healthy because I don't think that's true. But you don't think of yourself as being worth less than others either because I don't think that's true. Now, I used to measure my value and my worth by things I could do and how well I could do on those things based on competence. Now, the issue with competence-based esteem is that your sense of worth goes up on your good days or your good performance days and bad down on your bad performance days. Right? If you're a singer and you sing well, that means you're great. But if you have a bad performance, then that means you suck, right? A healthy sense of esteem is actually pretty consistent. If your esteem is not based on your performance or your competence, then you might be wondering, what do you base it on? Well, I encourage people to base their esteem on their character traits, the traits. And when you value those traits that you possess, because everyone has a unique constellation, if you will, of traits. When you value yourself and your unique sense of that awareness of those contributions that you can make, even on the worst days, those things will still hold value. I'll give you an example. Just the other day, I facilitated a workshop for an organization. Okay. And I wasn't familiar with the platform that they were using. And the presentation that I made just wouldn't work. And I worked hard on this presentation, so I was not about to just discard it. At least that's what I was thinking at the time. So I spent a few minutes trying to work it through. And um, I got off to a rocky start. I just couldn't get my bearings for a minute, and I felt uncomfortable and out of sorts. And it just sat with me even after the fact. I mean, the plane got off the ground and it was okay, but the thoughts kept coming back to me that I didn't do a good job. Even a couple days later, and I was thinking about my performance and that it wasn't my best, and I was not happy about that. Many years ago, that would have had me down, but not just down about the presentation. I would have been thinking about myself poorly. I would probably say mean things to myself and come to conclusions about my future. These are the kinds of thoughts that can contribute to depression and anxiety. The absence of self-appreciation has a terrible impact on our mental health. Now, I mentioned anxiety and depression because those are the main ones. It's like anxiety is the hub for a lot of mental health challenges and crises. So, suffering from anxiety and depressing moods, that can leave you physically drained, emotionally and psychologically embittered. Okay, many people experiencing depression, they're not happy with themselves. And it's hard to live with a pessimistic outlook. Now, there are many factors that contribute to depression. Some things like weather, diet, genetics, circumstances in your life presently, but also trauma from the past. Now, while these factors may not necessarily be your fault or someone who's experiencing depression's fault, I've learned that change will always be their responsibility. It will always be your responsibility. There's a difference between responsibility and blame. Okay. It might not be your fault, but if it's your life, it's your responsibility. No one can do it for you. No one can grow for you. No one can heal for you. You can have people on your side. You can have people support you, encourage you. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. Now, responsibility is a heavy word, but I want to focus on the fact that the challenge of taking this responsibility, of owning this responsibility, is actually the opportunity that people quite often miss. Every challenge presents an opportunity, even when you are feeling depressed. Seeing and seizing the opportunity for your wellness, whether it means to learn how to rest or to eat even when you don't feel like it, to walk when you're not in the mood, to seek professional help, or to reach out to a friend, to journal or to pray. These are things that you get to be responsible for. The absence of taking action to help yourself results in not caring for yourself, and sometimes even giving up on yourself. So when depression is heavy, certain thoughts will be heavy too. Like, I can't do this. This will never change. There's no point. So even before lifting a finger or trying to get out of bed, there's great benefit to being aware of these thoughts and to learn how to challenge them, including whether an example would be, if I even if I don't get out of bed, I'm still worthy of love. Now, for those of you who have a strong work ethic and actually measure your worth by your work, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow. But when you can't move, when you are unable to move, it is important to still be loving and kind to yourself. You still have worth, and it's important to know that. It's important to believe that because that's what's going to help you combat the thoughts that are impacting your mood. And that's not just true for depression, it's true for people who are experiencing intense anxiety. Just like depression, there are several thought patterns at play. And with depression, you're painting negative pictures. You have negative pictures about the past and you come to negative conclusions about the future. And that's what anxiety does too. Negative pictures of the future are going through your mind. And this can be a difficult experience to break free from, but it's also an opportunity to learn about the factors that contribute to your feelings of anxiety. Okay? It's a good time to identify the thought patterns and learn the exit strategies, as I call them. Okay? The thoughts in your mind, even as a person who's supporting someone who's suffering with significant challenges, whether it's anxiety or depression, those thought patterns will tell you that there's nothing you can do. I've come alongside people for years, and I remember when I was first getting started, they were saying, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. Even though every thought in your mind will tell you, and some people will tell you that there's nothing you can do. I'm telling you, there's always something you can do because every challenge is an opportunity. When you see what the opportunity is, then and only then can you define your next step, your very next step towards making the most of that opportunity. All right, so I've said enough about that. Let's move on to talk about some of the benefits of self-appreciation. How does it help when you appreciate yourself? Well, when you value yourself, you'll see what you have to offer and the difference that you can make. Why am I talking about the benefits? Well, understanding that there are benefits to self appreciation, the active engagement in loving yourself, it will begin to shift your perspective. Because not only will you feel more motivated, but it will give you insight into how others are making the most of their lives. Do you ever wonder why some people are good at achieving their goals? Well, having a good awareness of who you are, your strengths, and your values, that's what enables you to live with those things, those values, those character traits, and those blessings in mind, and to set goals that are in alignment with who you are and not what you're trying to get, because there's a difference. A healthy perspective allows you to set realistic goals. I don't know about you, but I know in the past I've set some unrealistic goals for myself. And I've known people, I've worked with people, I've helped people who put enormous pressure on themselves to be like other people, to do what other people do, to have what other people have. I don't know if you feel brave enough or courageous enough. If you can relate, put it in the chat. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It's even as I opened this segment of our talk today, I was talking about wondering about how other people do it. But there's a difference between learning from other people, being inspired by other people, and trying to be like other people, trying to have what other people have. There is a big difference, a really, really big difference. Knowing and valuing yourself, okay, it stops you from comparing. Okay. It will stop you from comparing. And we'll circle back to that in a moment. But that's one of the benefits. It's setting realistic goals. You know what drives you. You know what moves you. You know what your limitations are. And it's okay to have limitations. Everyone has limitations. And when you know what your limitations are, you can either set some goals to help you kind of take that very next step, but you can also know when to call it quits or when to take a break or when to rest. In one of these talks, we talked about stress and understanding the difference between good stress and bad stress, because not all stress is bad. Stress is about putting pressure on yourself. Let's say you're going to the gym. Okay? You're going to the gym and you're going to lift some weights. Is it bad to lift weights? No. But if you lift too heavy, too fast, or you lift too often and don't give your body enough time to rest, then it becomes bad stress. It's unsustainable and it's unhealthy. But what often motivates people? I need to be bigger. I need to be bigger. I need to... And I'm not making fun of people. I'm just talking. That was my inside voice. I wanted to be like, if I was as big as I wanted to be, I would need a new chair. I couldn't sit in this chair anymore. I used to be so unhappy with myself that I wanted to be bigger. I felt weak. I felt small and scrawny because that's how I was, and that's how I saw myself as a little boy. Remember, we talked about this before. Trauma, it presses pause on our emotional development. So even though I grew and I grew physically, experientially, I was still that little boy. And a lot of the times we push ourselves to do things and to be like people because we're not happy with ourselves. Okay? It's important to realize what the motivation is for the things that we're doing. It will help us set realistic goals. And when you set realistic goals, those goals will be sustainable and you will find yourself not wearing yourself out, not putting yourself down. You're going to be good to yourself. Okay. So that's one of the, well, that's how it helps. That's one of the benefits. Now, knowing and valuing yourself will allow you to be content where you are. Now, some people might not agree with that philosophy of being content where you are because they think it's the same as becoming complacent. One of the verses that I love, it's from the scriptures. It says, contentment with godliness, or godliness with contentment is great gain. Does that mean that I will never grow or that I don't have a desire to do more, experience more, even possess more, be a good steward over more? No, that's not what it means. But the more is not what drives me. The more is not what fulfills me. I can be content here. If I were to die today, I would be content. Why would I be content? Have I achieved all my goals? Definitely not. I would be content because I know who I am. and there's value to me, and I'm giving that value every single day. And that's okay. That's enough for me. I can't do everything that I want to do. I can't do it all in this moment. It's just not possible. And I know that. So it helps me to be content. So not only can you be content with where you are right now in this present moment, but you'll also be content with taking each step of the journey instead of it being an all or nothing perspective about your goals and about your future. I know many people have a difficult time slowing down because they want to achieve their goals. They want to get to the top of the mountain. They want to summit, right? They want to get to this height of whatever it is, whether it's their career or their relationship. They want the end goal. There's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is, you'll never get to the top of the mountain if you don't take all the steps in between. Each step is valuable. Talked about challenges and opportunities. Each step has an opportunity for you to learn something, something that's valuable to you, something that is valuable to others around you. There's value with where you are, and there's value for the next steps. But that value is based a lot on your perception of that value. Okay. I talked about emotional and spiritual maturity. Excuse me, I have children, and they don't necessarily appreciate the value of money. And I don't just mean earning it. They don't necessarily know the denominations. So the 5 year old, if I were to offer him, you know, 10 $1 bills, as opposed to one $1,000 bill, he might take the 10 because he thinks it's worth more. Value, appreciating the value of something, it involves a mature understanding. And a lot of times we think our value is outside of us. It's beyond us. It will come when we arrive at a certain place or we do certain things. No, 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 no. You are the value. You are the gift. And when you value you, it makes a difference on how you live. It shifts your perspective about your goals. You get to celebrate yourself. Okay? This is an important thing. This is how self-appreciation helps. You do not have to wait on others to acknowledge or celebrate you. This is important. I know I talk a lot about three core needs. If you haven't heard me talk about three core needs, maybe you want to go back to another video or set something up with me. I'll tell you all about it. But we as human beings, we have the need to feel safe, we have the need to feel significant, and we have the need to feel strong. Significance is something that you are born with, I believe. You are created with significance. When you know this and when you acknowledge this and when you see and value what's significant about you, if somebody else doesn't see it, if somebody else doesn't say it, it's okay. It's okay. You don't need other people to acknowledge or even celebrate you in order to be valuable, in order to recognize your value. Yes, it's nice. Okay. I wouldn't want to be in relationships either where people don't acknowledge me and don't celebrate me. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes that fuels us and we look for it. When we feel insignificant on a given day because of the thoughts that we're having, it's a part of life. We try to get filled up from other people. Bad idea. Bad idea. Okay, because they might be having a bad day and they just might be mean to you, or they might not be available. They might not value you the way that you value you, or they might not value the traits that you have. But just because they don't doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Okay? This is self-appreciation, owning your own value, acknowledging it, appreciating it. It makes a difference. And for those of you who are looking for employment or want to enjoy your employment, or even if you're employing others, self-appreciation helps your employability. It really does. When you go for an interview, more times than not, they're going to ask you, so what are your strengths? And it's pretty obvious when people they just look it up online because that's what a lot of people do. They go online and be like, "What are my strengths?" And they try to look outside of themselves to find good things about themselves. Does that make sense? Not a good idea. It's not going to read as authentic. Okay? People will see through that. It's so important to know yourself and to truly value yourself. So when you go in for the interview, you can say, "Well, I take initiative. I enjoy that. I'm a creative person. I love being creative. These are some of the things that I've created, and these are when I take initiative, I feel great because that's just who I am as a person, right?" You can honestly and authentically say these things, but you cannot say these things if you're not aware of them. And just because you're not aware of them doesn't mean that they're not there. Taking the time to know yourself is a big part of appreciating yourself. It gives insight, okay, to yourself and your purpose. I talk a lot about purpose, your existence, okay, your existence, what you have to contribute to relationships. We are relational people, okay? We are designed to be in relationship with others. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it is better to give than to receive. Why is that? I grew up hearing it and didn't understand it. It is better to give than to receive. To be perfectly honest with you, growing up, I I had this some people call a scarcity mindset, you know. I was oriented towards worrying that there wasn't going to be enough. And it permeated my world and my mind. So there wasn't going to be enough. I wasn't going to do good enough. I'm not enough. I'm not strong. It was just not enough. And it was just the way that I thought. So I would engage in things trying to get, trying to become enough, right? Trying to get a job so I could have enough, trying to, find clients so I could earn enough. And logically, it might sound like, well, that makes sense, Andrew. But in my soul, it depleted me. It made me chase. It moved me to not sleep well and not eat well, always worrying about the next thing. Now, I am a spiritual person. I believe God is real and he'll take care of me. And that shifted me to start to think about what do I actually have to give? What do I have to give? And I have so much to give. It doesn't mean that you stop working. It doesn't mean that you don't engage with clients. No, it's exact opposite. When I go into situations now, I go with a mindset to serve. I have something worthy to give. Even if I don't get anything back, that's okay. Because I'm not going from a place of desperation or need. I'm filled up. I've got something to give. So even when you go for a job interview, for the youth who are on this on the line right now, you go for a job interview, don't go thinking, I need this job, I need this job. It's better to think, you know what, I've got something to give. And if it's a good fit, they'll realize that I've got something to contribute. It's better to give than to receive because when you give, you receive twice. You receive the blessing of being able to give, but then there's this reciprocity that happens. People express appreciation. If it's a valued service, people will pay for it if they have the ability. And if they don't, sometimes they will find other ways to say thank you. And that's okay, whether it's telling somebody else about the good work that you did or whatever it is. There's enough good out there for you to not have to worry about getting good. Focus on giving good, self appreciation. You recognize I was given this. This is who I am. I wake up and I can do that. I can give that. It's easy for me to give that. It produces itself, reproduces itself every day. I get up. For example, I'm a compassionate person. It's just wired into who I am. I don't have to think twice about being, well, that's not true. Sometimes I might be tired and I'm not the most compassionate person, okay? Right? And sometimes some people are just difficult to deal with. But there's still great value in showing that compassion. So it's great. It's a good feeling to give. Okay? It's a really good, it feels good to give. So you don't have to go out in the world to search for people to give stuff to you, like significance or worth. Okay? I really believe this to be true. We all have a limited amount of time on the earth. And the time to enjoy being alive, fully invested in being you, the time is now. When you appreciate who you are, you will experience great fulfillment every day, whether or not other people acknowledge you. It just is what it is. Okay? I'm going to move on to our next point here. What does it look like? Self-appreciation in action. Now, I've been talking to you about um, what we want to move away from. Okay, it's one thing to say you should appreciate yourself, don't undervalue yourself, but it's another thing to give clarity about what it looks like. Okay. And if you have more questions after this, you know me, I love questions. We're going to get to them in a moment. But I want to take some time to give some clarity about what valuing yourself looks like and what you can do about it today. Okay. Now, when people appreciate themselves, when you value yourself, you will live in alignment with who you are. You cannot live in alignment with who you are if you don't know who you are. A lot of the times, we as human beings, we compromise ourselves. And I mentioned it before because we're trying to catch up with other people. We're trying to measure up. We're trying to match up with other people. When you really have a healthy sense of yourself and you appreciate yourself in real time, you won't be comparing yourself to others. If and when you take strides, you'll be taking strides to be the best version of yourself. Okay. It's important not to compare yourself. I call it comparison's cure. Cure for comparison. There are two things that are really important. If you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, I want you to write this down. There's two things that you get to do. Number one, you want to celebrate. Celebrate other people. So if you find yourself comparing, stop, take a moment, and think about how wonderful that person is that you're comparing yourself to. And be happy for them. Be happy for them. Celebrate them. Send them a note, send them a text. You did a really great job. I'm really happy for you. Wow, you sold this amount of records. That's awesome. Congratulations. Even if you ain't sold one yet, that's okay. Be happy for the other person. Practice celebrating other people. It feels good to celebrate other people when you're not comparing because you are actually joining them. You're rejoicing with them. That is a good thing. Remember, give, be genuinely happy for people. Allow yourself to do that. It will shift the way that you're thinking. It will shift your mood. Allow yourself to celebrate other people. So that's part one. Part two, it's important to appreciate yourself, appreciate who you are, what you have, what you can do, what you enjoy doing. How do you appreciate yourself? Well, one of the things you can do is actually stop and make a list, at least 5 things. Okay. When I work with people, I give them the 50 positive traits challenge. 50, okay? 50 positive traits about themselves. Some of you are probably jaws dropping like, what? 50? Well, we'll start with 5, okay? I want you to write down 5 things that you love about you. If you can't think of 5, it's indicative of the fact that you haven't given it enough thought. And if you haven't given it enough thought, you probably come from an environment, a culture, a family that doesn't actually celebrate people in this particular way. It might celebrate accomplishments, but it doesn't celebrate the traits that lead to the accomplishment. Okay. You're a great singer, wonderful, but what makes somebody a great singer? Sure, there's raw talent. A lot of people have raw talent, but talent doesn't become skill without discipline, without consistency, without creativity, without passion, right? Being passionate, that's a trait. Being creative, that's a trait. Being disciplined, being determined, persevering, those are the traits. Okay. I want you to list 5 of your traits. That's an important thing. And appreciate that. Appreciate that about yourself. It matters. Okay. I want to know who's going to take me up on that challenge. Okay. Here's another example. One of the things that you can actively do when you self appreciate yourself, appreciate your life and how you're living it, is acknowledging those steps. I know I talked before about um, shifting out of this all or nothing thinking that, the little things that I do don't matter. The steps that I take, I'm not even going to acknowledge them until I get to where I go. If you want to motivate yourself that way, okay, go for it. I don't think it's the best. I really don't. Acknowledging your steps is really, really, really good. It will help you to build momentum. It helps you to feel happy and content with your investment today. It matters. What step did you take today towards that goal? It counts. A lot of people who have challenges with their thought patterns on a regular basis, I encourage them, of course, to journal. But one of the things that I encourage people to do as they journal for a period of time is to ask and answer this question. What went well today? How did I contribute to that? What am I grateful for? That's important. You will shape the way that you think by taking these little steps over and over and over. One of my daughters, that's how she learned to climb the steps. I have 2 daughters and they're different. One just ran up the stairs, down the stairs, fell up, fell down. That's how she did it. And the other one, she would take one step up, turn around and come back down. And turn around, take that step up, turn around, come back down. But that's what she did until she felt comfortable and capable enough to move through. And then she just was doing all the stairs because she practiced that one. Acknowledging your single steps, the small steps, good things to do. Appreciate who you are today and the step that you took and what moved you to take it. What is it about you, your life, your purpose, your value that moved you to take that step? Acknowledge it every single day. Okay. Another thing that is evidence that you can do is celebrate and reward yourself for your accomplishments. That is self appreciation. Again, we're not waiting for other people to acknowledge us. And sometimes we come from a culture where, again, they don't encourage that. But culture is something that you contribute to. You can shape your own culture, you can influence culture. Now, that doesn't mean you have to blow the bank and spend everything you got. And every time, you achieve something, you gotta eat a chocolate brownie. Like that might be overdoing it a little bit. But one of the things you can do is acknowledge. You can look in the mirror. It costs you nothing to look in the mirror and say, good job. Every day, I make a list of the things that I'm working on. Okay. I don't know if you could see that. And it helps me stay organized and focused. And believe it or not, I write it in black, but I cross it out in red. It feels so good. It's a little thing, it's a simple thing, but it feels so good. For me, it's a little celebration, it's a little party. Yes, right? And yes, I am accomplishing things But organization and focus, they're not things that like readily come to me. So I'm celebrating myself for maturing and growing and implementing these things. I call them stuck points. We all have different strengths, but we all have stuck points where we find ourselves, I can't break through, I can't move to the next level. It's important to sit down and think about what it is that you want to apply and move and motivate yourself and commit to doing so that you can grow yourself. And this is one of the things that I do. So I acknowledge it. I celebrate it. It feels good to me. So I reward myself, right? It doesn't have to cost a lot. Going out and, I don't know, getting a drink, Starbucks or whatever it is, reward yourself. Buy yourself a, I'm not talking about retail therapy. I'm not talking about buying things to cheer yourself up. I'm talking about buying things to celebrate yourself and your accomplishments. It's important that it matters to you. Okay. It's important that matters to you. So just in case you missed it, these are some things that you can do today. Write down 5 things about what you love about yourself. Okay. And I want you to reflect on what makes those qualities important and of value to you. Okay. And then commit to acknowledging and then appreciating them when you experience or share them. In addition to being a coach, counselor, speaker, all this stuff, I have the privilege, as I mentioned, of being a dad. And one of the things that I love the most about being a dad is helping my daughters. I I see great value in breaking generational patterns. And for me, understanding anxiety isn't just relevant for work. And it means a lot to me that I get to help my daughters with that. I'm a helpful person. I listen because I'm attentive, right? I feel comfortable saying these things about me because it's true. Am I always listening? No. There are times when I'm like, listen, I tell my children, listen, I get up early. You might not want to go to bed, but I do. It is past your bedtime and it is past my bedtime. So I do not want to see you or hear you till tomorrow morning. So it's not that I'm always listening, but the quality and kind of listening that I get to do, that I've learned to do, that I get better at, it's the kind that makes their day. It shifts. They write me cards that say, Dad, I love you because you're a great listener. You're there for me. Those things matter to me. Why not celebrate them? I have this box. It's actually beneath my laptop right now. It's holding it up so it's the right height. And in this box are several cards. I'm a sentimental guy. I keep the cards. They matter to me. I look at these things and I celebrate them. I hold on to them. I acknowledge them. If nobody else in the world sees it, it doesn't matter to me. If it really doesn't matter to me. If somebody be like, you're a deadbeat dad because whatever, I'm just like, okay, right. Thanks for sharing your opinion. It means nothing because I know what's true. I don't need somebody to tell me that. And that's my hope for you. My hope for you is that you will see how wonderful you are and that you will celebrate yourself and that you will bring that self everywhere you go, whether it's to work or relationships or even just time with yourself and time in nature. Be you. Self appreciation makes a difference. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I definitely want to hear from you if you have any questions because this topic of self-esteem isn't something that a lot of cultures spend a lot of time talking about. We have cultures of honor and we have cultures of respect and work culture and work ethic. But quite often, There's not an appreciation of oneself. So some people are like, I've been thinking this way for so long. Can you actually be of help to me? And I'm like, of course. Of course I can be of help. That's what I do. That's what I do. So you know how to reach me, whether you reach me through Why Not or you go to coachdrew.ca, schedule a time to connect with me if you want to talk about this any further. All right. So you're welcome to raise your hand or throw a question in the chat. I know we talk a lot about mental health and mental health challenges, and people often wonder, well, if I'm stuck in depression, how can I actually move forward? So one of the things is it's important to understand your own experience of depression. Okay. You want to understand what that means. Like I said earlier, there are many factors that can contribute to depression. It could be genetic, it could be generational, it could be situational, environmental, food, rest, sleep, all these other things. So you want to understand that. It's important to start with a good understanding because then you can define and take your next best step and it's complicated, but it's actually as simple as that. And sometimes you benefit from speaking with somebody who has experience and walked with other people so that they can help you identify some of those contributing factors. So I definitely don't want people to walk away thinking that depression or anxiety is a life sentence. Okay, because that supports this way of thinking that doesn't help. Okay. So here's a question. What is a piece of advice you would tell your younger self? I talk to my younger self every day. Oh my goodness. So what I would and do tell my younger self is you're wonderful. You are wonderful. Um, Part of in addition to labeling those traits that are wonderful about me, I do this exercise with people called core values, and we search for the core values, and I walk people through a process. And ever since I was young, I demonstrated certain not only character traits, but I had certain values. And those values matter to me to this day. Growth is an example. It's a core value. I always wanted to grow, valued growing, and I still do. Authenticity, that's big for me. That's really big for me. When I was younger, I played the keyboards and I was nervous and I quit because I was so nervous. But the truth is, I loved playing. I genuinely enjoyed it. And if I was allowed to just play for me, in my own space, in my own time, have that genuine, authentic experience for myself, I wouldn't have stopped. But the assumption that because you have a gift, you have to share it with the whole world as soon as you're discovered or you discover this gift, it wasn't authentic to who I was. So I would tell my younger self, become aware of who you are and you value that. I would tell you, my younger self, God loves you. He sees you. He knows you. He made you as you are. You are wonderful. Don't try to pressure yourself to be like anybody else. That's what I would tell my younger self. So that's a really, really, really good question. Great question. Any other questions? All right. Got another question. It's a good one. How can you respond to negative or positive feedback from colleagues? Ooh, this is good. And how do you know if they are just flattering you or not? Oh, I like that one. That's a good one. Um, so let's talk about positive feedback because a lot of people don't know how to receive positive feedback. And again, it's because they're just not used to it or they don't believe it to be true. Well, the best thing you can say is thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I would definitely say start by saying thank you, acknowledging it. And it's okay. Just that's all you got to say. You don't even just say anymore. Thank you. Move on. Sometimes you feel pressured to return a compliment. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not no quid pro quo kind of deal. Like you say something nice to me, I have to say, no, no, no. Allow it to be genuine, authentic. If there's something that you have been appreciating for a long time and you just never said it, then you can acknowledge that. I've never said it for whatever reason, but I acknowledge this about you and I appreciate that. So the difference here is when somebody says something nice to you, it is affirming, but quite often it will be confirming because you already know this to be true, right? You did a great job. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it had a wonderful impact on you. Thanks, right? You don't have to be like, well, I think I did a good job too, right? But it's different because it's not like you're a parched plant who has never received water before and now they're like the rain, in the desert. No, 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 no. You water yourself every day, so you're used to it. It's good. Um, so let's talk a little bit about negative feedback. Well, there's a difference between someone giving you constructive feedback and someone trying to tear you down, right? So you can tell because, well, some people, again, they come from a culture that that's just how they do. So it might not be intentional, but again, that doesn't mean that they're not responsible for what they do. So if it's not constructive and they're not trying to support you, encourage you, if they're not acknowledging what you did well, and they're only pointing out what you didn't do, you can actually ask them, be like, you know what? Thank you. I will give that some attention. But did you notice anything that I did do well? And if you didn't, that's okay. Just I just want you to think about that. Your feedback is appreciated, but it's a better experience for me when you highlight that I did something good. Just say it. So if you want to give me feedback in the future, start with something good and then, make a recommendation of something I could change. Okay. So you are not subject to people's destructive behaviors and attitudes. You do not have to take it. You can impact change in your environment by giving people guidance about how to communicate with you. They don't have to. They don't have to. It's not like it's a guarantee that they're going to take you up on your offer, but you will feel better about having said something than not. Okay. So how do you know if they're just flattering you or not? Well, sometimes you can't know if they're just flattering you or not, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because you're not looking to them to boost your ego. If you're not feeling confident about your presentation, then reflect on the presentation. Think about what you could do better, but also take the time to think about what was good, right? Because you want to practice that for yourself. What was good? What could I do better? And then you follow up on that. You make improvements. You can ask specific questions, right? If somebody is flattering you, you can even ask them, is there something, what specifically was it that you appreciated? And are there areas you think that I could improve, right? Further the conversation. That's a way to kind of flesh out the genuine um, interaction if you want to. Those are options. Okay, those are options. I've been fortunate enough to work with some really wonderful people that give constructive feedback and are helpful. And we need that. Again, when you have a healthy sense of self, you don't have to knock it out of the park every time. You will appreciate that, sometimes it's not going to be that great, but that's okay. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. So it's a really good question. Thanks for that question. We are down to our last few minutes. Any other questions before we wrap up for the day and I hand over to Olivia? Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, Olivia, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blackwood, for this insightful and engaging workshop. If you're interested in joining future workshops, and you can keep an eye out on our social medias at YNOT Services, as well as our website. And we will be doing our raffle now for our Cineplex movie ticket. So I'm just going to put in the chat our address and our phone number for that. And then I have my little basket here. And our winner is going to be Comfort. So,
Yay.
so thank you again to Dr. Blackwood and all of our participants. And that was your workshop for today.
Thank you, Olivia. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Bye. Mhm.